Welcome back, class. Today we're continuing with plants. We're doing how do plants make food? We've gone through some of the answers for these before, so let's start. Choose the best word to complete each statement. So the words we have to choose from are stem, leaves, food, and air. Something, change air, water, and light into food for plants. So what changes the air, water, and light into food for plants? Is it the stem, the leaves, food, or air? If you remember, it's the leaves. Now let's take a look at the next one. Plants take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen back into the stem, food, or air. Well, if the plants take the carbon dioxide from the air, they release the oxygen back into the air. So the answer is air. Plants can pass stored onto other living things. Plants can pass stored stem or food. Food. And food produced by leaves moves to other parts of the plant through the stem. We said when the water and the minerals and the food goes up the roots, it travels through the stem to other parts of the plant. Let's take a look at this question. Why is a leaf called the food factory of a plant? Because the leaf is the site, or it is the place where the food is made for the plant. In the leaves, the air, water, and light is changed into food for the plant. So that's why the leaf is considered the food factory. Let's move on to this page. Research. You will research how to care for a plant of your choice. What question will your research help to answer? So what type of plant would you like to care for? Maybe an orchid. You can say, how do you care for an orchid? Or you could do rose or any other plant you want. Research how to care for the plant. So you can go to Google and you can type in, how do you care for an orchid? Or how do you care for a rose? And then fill in the boxes below with information about the plant. So an orchid might need lots of light. It might only need water once a week. You might need to keep the soil damp. Damp means wet, but not too wet. What about the habitat? Does it stay indoors or outdoors? And should the temperature be quite hot or warm or cool? And then important facts, maybe things like if this plant is delicate, that means it can easily be harmed. You should treat it gently. So handle gently. Do not pull leaves off, etc. When you're done with all these, let's look at the last essential question. Why do plants need light? Think about the photo of the terrarium you saw at the beginning of the lesson. So that little glass bowl with the stones and the leaves and plants growing inside. And use what you've learned to explain why plants need light. So what have you learned about plants and why they need light? Why do plants need light? Because light helps the plant make food. which of course the plant needs to grow and survive. Well done. Hello class, today we're moving on to lesson 3. Plants make more plants. Making more plants. Two friends are talking about what plants need to make more plants. Which friend has the best idea? So Talia says, I think some plants need animals to help them make more plants. And Ben says, I disagree. Animals don't help plants make more plants. They eat plants. What do you think? It's just the beginning, so any answer you have is valid. It's correct. Until we find out the real answer. We're going to discover the real answer soon. Let's watch this video.
What comes to mind when you think about flowers? Flowers come in many different colors, shapes, and sizes. You may have even eaten a flower. The flowers of a broccoli plant are very healthy for you. But why do plants have flowers? To make new plants. A flower is the part of the plant that makes seeds. The seed is the part of a plant that can grow into a new plant. But how? The flower makes a sticky powder called pollen. When the pollen is moved around from one flower to another, it helps the flower make seeds. Plants make fruit to help the seeds grow and keep them safe. Most of the time, you will find seeds inside a fruit. Some fruits, like strawberries, have seeds on the outside. A seed needs light, water, and nutrients from the soil in order to grow into a new plant. Now when you think about a flower, try to imagine the new plant it can help grow.
So let's take a look at this dandelion blowing in the air. So a dandelion is like a flower, and we see all the little parts flying away, and it will eventually fall onto the soil. Watch the video of the dandelion blowing, which we just saw. What do you notice about parts of the flower, and what questions do you have? We might ask, what are the pieces flying off? Maybe ask, why are they flying off? What will happen to them? This is tied into something called pollination. Pollination is when flowers make seeds. Flowers look pretty and smell sweet. They also do an important job. Flowers have special parts so they can help make new plants. The middle part of the flower is where the pollen and nectar are made. Nectar is the sugary liquid made by the flower in order to help attract bees and other insects. So we're talking about this middle part here. This middle part is where pollen and nectar are made. Animals and flowers are important partners. Some animals are attracted to a flower's smell or its bright colors. When a bee comes to drink a flower's sweet nectar, it gets covered in pollen. The bee then goes to another flower and transfers the pollen to the new flower. This is called pollination. Hummingbirds, butterflies, and birds all help flowers make new flowers. So what is pollination? Pollination is when the pollen of one flower gets transferred to another flower. So if a bee came here and sat here to drink the nectar, the sweet juice, it would get pollen stuck on it, and then it would move on to this flower. And accidentally, it would leave the pollen into this other flower. And that's how new flowers are made. Now we'll be able to answer some of these questions. How do seeds travel? Make a prediction. How can seeds of different plants travel? Well, like we've seen in the dandelion, they could travel by the wind. If the wind blows the seeds or the pollen to another site and it falls into another plant or onto the ground, new plants can grow. Or, as we've seen with the bees or other animals, such as birds, might transfer the pollen and seeds onto other places, and new plants will grow. Here's an investigation we can do. Investigate the ways seeds travel by conducting the simulation. Observe how many of each type of plant grows when you first open the simulation. When given the option, choose either wind or animal to see how seeds travel differently with the help of wind or an animal, and observe how many of each type of plant grows with the help of the wind or help from an animal. Draw how the wind helped seeds travel. So if you don't want to do the activity, you can think of the videos we watched. Remember with the dandelion, you can draw how the seeds have traveled with the help of the wind. And draw how an animal helped the seeds travel. You could draw a bee coming into one flower and then flying off into another flower. We have another interesting video to watch that will tell us a lot about some of our key words and how plants make new plants.
Making new plants. Seed growth. Just as there are many kinds of plants, there are many types of seeds. A seed is a plant part that can grow into a new plant. Seeds hold an embryo or a tiny young plant. When the seed grows into a small young plant, it is called a seedling. Seeds have their own food. Seeds have special parts that work together. They have a seed coat on the outside to keep them from drying out and to keep the tiny plant inside safe. Seeds also have food stored inside to feed the tiny growing plant. Seeds come in different colors, shapes, and sizes. Places seeds grow. Every seed holds what it needs to grow in the right conditions. Some seeds need sunlight, and others need darkness to start growing. All seeds need air, water, space, and the right temperature to grow into a plant. Flowering plants make more of themselves through their own seeds. A flower is a plant part that makes seeds. Fruit is a plant part that holds seeds. Seeds cannot grow in the same place as the plant that they came from. They have to have their own air, water, and soil. Flowers and fruit have seeds. Plants grow from seeds. Water and wind travel. Seeds have to travel to find a new home. Because they do not have legs like animals, they have to get around in other ways. Some seeds float in water from one place to another. Some of these seeds can begin to grow in the water, too. Other seeds travel by wind. These kinds of seeds are usually small and weigh very little, so it is easy for the wind to carry them. Some seeds have parts that work like wings to help them stay in the air longer and travel farther. Some seeds travel in water. Some seeds have parts that act like wings in the air. Animal travel. Large seeds, such as acorns and other nuts, are too heavy to travel by wind. These seeds are carried by an animal. These seeds stick to the fur of animal. A seed might get stuck in an animal's fur and catch a ride until it drops off. Also, an animal might eat a fruit with seeds and later drop those seeds in a new place. Another example is when an animal gathers seeds to eat, but leaves some seeds behind in a new place uneaten. Squirrels carry acorns that hold seeds for oak trees. Animals and pollen. Plants not only depend on animals to carry their seeds, but also to carry and spread pollen. Pollen is a sticky powder inside a flower that helps make seeds. Animals, such as bees, carry pollen on their bodies as they go from one flower to another to feed. Flowering plants need pollen from another plant to make a new seed that will one day grow into its own plant. Birds, bees, and butterflies spread pollen.
Now that we know a little more about our vocabulary words, let's try to use these words and match them with their definition. So we're going to be using seed, pollen, seedling, pollination, fruit, and dispersal. Seed, the plant part that grows a new plant. It's the plant part from which the new plant grows. A seedling is a small, young plant. And a fruit is the plant part that makes seeds or holds seeds. If you think of something like a strawberry or a pumpkin, does it make seeds or does it just hold the seeds? It holds the seeds. So the fruit is the plant part that holds seeds. And the flower is the plant part that makes seeds. Let's think of this question. Why must seeds travel instead of growing right where they are? We said some of the things a plant needs are food, light, air, and they'll need some space. So maybe that's why the seed must travel, to find new space and new soil for its roots to grow and for its stem to grow and leaves to grow and to get sunlight. Name 2 insects that spread pollen so plants can make more plants. Do you remember 2 insects? We can say bees and butterflies. Which part of the plant can grow into another plant? So does the stem grow into another plant? Does the leaf grow into another plant? Or does the seed grow into another plant? The seed becomes a new plant. Which of the following does not help seeds move? Wind, animals, or soil? We saw with the dandelion that the wind was blowing the seeds, so the wind was helping the seeds move. We know that animals, such as birds, hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies, also help the seeds move. So the answer is soil. Soil does not help seeds move. Humans can help with seed dispersal. That means moving it from one place to another by picking up a seed and planting it in a new place. So we can help seeds disperse, or with seed dispersal, by picking up the seed and putting it somewhere else. That helps disperse or to move the seeds. Let's think of these questions. A flower stores food for a plant. False. The flower does not store food. It has the seeds and it has nectar for bees, but it doesn't have food for the plant. Food for the plant is made in the leaves and it travels through the stem. Fruit helps keep seeds safe. That is true. The fruit is a place where the seed can be inside and it doesn't get damaged or heated up by the sun or by other animals. What part do flowers play in making new plants? Plants have flowers to make seeds. So the flowers hold the seeds that can be moved from either the wind or from bees or other animals to new places to make new plants. Most fruits have seeds on the inside, but something are an example of a fruit with seeds on the outside. Do you remember which fruit has seeds on the outside? strawberries. So we read the pollination article. Now let's take a look at this. How does pollination happen? If you remember, pollination happens when a bee, for example, comes onto one plant, and while it's drinking the nectar, the sweet juice, the little bits of pollen get stuck on it. And then it flies to another flower to drink as well, and that pollen from the first flower gets stuck on the other flower. So that's how pollination happened. The bee has helped to bring pollen from one flower to the other flower. So how does pollination happen? When a bee, or it could even be the wind, picks up pollen from one flower and takes it to another. Why do bees fly from flower to flower? So remember, the bees are moving from flower to flower to drink the nectar, which is a sweet juice. So we've made it to the very last activity in our Plants Make Plants section. Insect pollination. You will investigate how an insect pollinates. Remember, that means carries pollen from one flower to the next, a flower. Make a prediction. What will happen to pollen on your hand when you touch flower after flower? And then use construction paper, any hard card paper, and other art supplies to create a flower. Make sure your flower is colorful enough to attract all kinds of birds, bees, and butterflies. Pretend that your fingers are insects. Reach into the flower bag your teacher gave you. Feed on the flower as an insect would. When you have finished, take your hand out of the flower and travel to a classmate's construction paper flower to feed on it. So your fingers are the bee, and you're going on from one flower, your own flower, to your friend's flower, or to another flower that you make. Feed on as many classmates' flowers as time will allow, and then wash your hands. Draw a picture of your flower, include labels, and explain what happened to your flower as your classmates came to feed on it. So how will your flower look like at the beginning and then at the end of the experiment? Maybe at the beginning it only had one color, because it only had the color from your fingers, but after you touched and they touched your flower, it'll have lots of different colors. What did the powdered sugar represent in the investigation? What did the candy at the bottom of the bag represent? Was your flower pollinated? And tell how you know.